corporation booking Spain-bound travel are also taking the environment more seriously than ever. As Kelvin notes, companies have increasingly asked for electric and or hybrid cars and are opting for a local business over global change.
In the third week, we base our new on New Zealand, specifically on this opens to tourists after the pandemic. The country has long been renowned for its breathtaking scenery and adventure tourism, offerings such as bungee jumping and ski. Before the spread of COVID-19, more than 3 million tourists visit each year, accounting for 20% of New Zealand's for high income and more than 5% of the overall economy. But international tourism stopped altogether in early 2020 after New Zealand imposed some of the worst tax border restrictions. The border rules remain in place as the government at first pursued a elimination strategy and then tried to control the spread of the virus. The spread of Omicron and vaccinations of the more than 80% of New Zealand's 5 million population popped the gradual easing of restrictions. The border reopening will help both tourists and help New Zealand's upcoming ski season, but the real test of how much the tourism industry rebounds will come in December, when the peak summer season begins in the southern hemisphere nation. In conclusion, after the adaptations that were made during the strong restrictions, now they are looking the recovered economy income that tourism provides.
And for the last week, we also chose an article from the BBC that was about how travelers may find more security visiting countries after international travel opened up again, realizing what makes a country agile and what travelers should expect when touching down. To capture the ability to adapt and respond to obstacles, the US News and World Report introduced the new Agility Index this year, creating a list of the top nations ranked by their ability to be adaptable, dynamic, modern, progressive, or responsive. And we found out that the United States, Australia, South Korea, Belgium, and Brazil are some of the most highly ranked countries. And these factors are more important than ever to travelers, many of whom are starting to travel internationally again for the first time in 2 years. As seen by the stream of new COVID-19 variants, the conditions can change rapidly and travelers may feel more secure visiting those countries with a strong track record of adjusting their policies appropriately and swiftly. And on the first ranking, the US may not have implemented a very strict lockdown like many other Western countries, but its market-driven economy enabled an adaptability that spurred quick innovation in the face of the COVID-19 crisis. The food industry was just a microcosm of the flexibility of the country overall, as other businesses were able to quickly adapt to the pandemic landscape, whether it was producing masks or hand sanitizer, or enabling technology like video conferencing to allow people to work from home more efficiently. Different states were able to enact widely different policies depending on their specific needs as well, which created 50 unique ways to respond to the pandemic. California and Florida, for instance, handled the pandemic in polar opposite ways, with California having extreme lockdowns and Florida balking at every restriction. And yet, both their economies did really well. It came down to strong leadership of a policy. And at the national level, mask mandates in airplanes and airports enable travelers to continue traveling there with confidence as well, which kept travel and its economic benefits open throughout the pandemic. And the government still requires international travelers to be fully vaccinated.
About Brazil. Brazil was a highest South American country in the Agility Index, ranked 23rd, as well as in its ability to be dynamic, ranked 5th. South residents admit government Istanbul in its pandemic response at first. The healthcare system was able to move quickly and efficiently to vaccinate the large population, including a near 100 vaccination rate in largest city Sao Paulo, making it one of the vaccine capitals of the world. With fewer resources and larger economies, the country could not afford to endure a lengthy lockdown, so residents had to do their own parts to wear masks and maintain social distancing. But many believe not stopping the economy helped the country emerge from the pandemic. Brazilians see themselves as survivors, and we always find a way to get through crisis, say resident Natalie Dido, co-founder of travel planning company Love and Road. Inside our hearts, we always hope for better days. Those days might finally be here as many restrictions like mask mandates have been lifted. Travelers must still provide a negative COVID test, a health declaration, and proof of vaccination. Diduc notes that Brazil is more than its big cities and the Amazon, and visitors should consider a trip to southern Brazil with its beach cities like Florianópolis and Aparados da Serra National Park, which has a family-run hotels and farm stays.
Different was the story of South Korea was a success story fighting against the COVID-19 pandemic, in key part due to the previous experience from SARS in 2003 and MERS in 2015. Say Heng Song-ha, assistant professor at Nasabei University Graduate School of Public Policy, who conducted research on the most governments during the pandemic. Travel restrictions were a challenging but necessary part of their policy, according to Shane Lee, who writes about travel at Wanderley. But she took advantage by immersing herself in travel within the country itself. I used the opportunity to find hidden gems that most people may have missed, she said. One of her favorites was Iwa Mural Village in Seoul, where bright, colorful paintings are nearly everywhere.
Jurga Rubenovich, founder of the family travel blog for Suitcase, Rubenovich felt that politicians were good at listening to advice, admitting they didn't know everything, and learning from mistakes to adapt. It wasn't just the government that adapted. Rubenovich knows that business has also changed rapidly, with restaurants offering takeout and food truck, online clothes store, and museums offering virtual tours. Even the modes in the Saint Sixtus Abbey started to selling the world-famous and very hard to find Wurtzbebel beer online during the pandemic. She said. She also saw a breakdown in the items of digitalization and card and mobile payment replacing, and students received iPhones and laptops for learning. In conclusion, in our project we have reached certain interesting points about the change that tourism had during the pandemic. Many countries changed their immigration politics, lowered health restrictions almost to zero to receive tourists. Business trips raged on. To enjoy the few more days of destination has been chosen. Notably, the country has offered complete tourist services to these trips, and the most visited in this 2022.